Hello, and welcome to part 2 of the Safeguarder Invigilator training. Once you have completed these slides, you should then complete the safeguarding quiz. Safeguarding at Wilson's means many things, as you can see on the slide here. There's just a few of them that I want to say something about. One of the big differences between secondary schools and primary schools is the kind of security of the school site. Adults are not allowed to just wander into the playground. That in fact is quite hard for people to get off the road. There's reasons for that. So when you are on site, it's making sure that you identify yourself, because you won't necessarily always be known to every member of staff. You're not seen regularly, so making sure that you're wearing your ID badges, making sure that you've signed in, and then when you're around the place, fulfilling the staff code of conduct, so essentially acting as a role model. You won't see staff walking around with their phones out. You won't see staff talking loudly outside exam venues when we're asking students to be quiet at the same time. You'll also know that as part of the recruitment process, there's various things that you've had to do: DBS checks, providing identification, completing safeguarding training. These are all part of our safer recruitment practices. Now, luckily for you, the environment that you're working in, there tends to be not a great deal of sort of safeguarding issues. Students are turning up, they're very focused on the exams that they're about to sit, and they get on with them. There's a sense of relief when they finish, and they just want to kind of to get away and sort of talk about how they've done. But it is also a highly stressful situation, and there are students are very tense. There's a lot riding on it, so we need to be aware of that when we have interactions with them. I'm certainly aware of that when I see students who may be running a little bit late and they're on the way to sit an exam. You wouldn't necessarily talk to them and tell them off in the same way you would somebody else who was sort of late for kind of period 2 geography. But that said, it's still about kind of noticing things, and there might be things that you just don't feel right and you want to pass that information on. There's some examples on the board there. It might also be just you hear things, and students talk to each other. Somebody says something, you show a bit of professional curiosity. That just doesn't sound right, or maybe there is some inappropriate behaviour between students that again doesn't feel right. Showing a little bit of professional curiosity, you might think, oh, I don't know who that person is. Well, you do, don't you? Because you follow them into the exam venue, you see where they sit, and you look at the seating plan, and then you've got his name. There's no point saying to somebody, oh, a boy said this, but I don't know who he is. That doesn't really help anybody. So just kind of listening, watching, observing, and then saying, look, this particular person said this, or I saw this, and it just doesn't feel right. I know you want to pass that information on. While we're talking about behaviours, I think it's worth just dwelling on kind of one area of safeguarding, which is peer-on-peer child abuse. And at Wilson's, there's an absolute kind of zero tolerance approach to any kind of harmful sexual behaviours, be that comments, be that physical behaviours, but also we have a much broader definition really of what means harmful behaviours. So any racist comments, misogyny, bullying, homophobia, anything that there will be consequences, there will be sanctions for the students. Obviously, we can only deal with things that we know about. And how do we know about these things? Well, the staff, they're the eyes and the ears, and they pass this information to us. Sometimes it comes from parents, sometimes it comes from students as well. But any concerns about any of those things, anything you see that, as I said, doesn't feel right, do pass that information on. Here's a couple of case studies worth just reading and thinking about. How would you have acted in this position? There are students that have never really displayed any great anxieties in year 7, 8, 9, 10. Then all of a sudden when it comes to the exam season, maybe year 11, maybe 12, maybe only in year 13, that there just feels like there's so much on it for them, that they are more stressed than they've ever been before. Invigilator here noticed something, passed the information on. Student got help. The invigilator didn't have to fix the problem. They just passed the information on. They were the eyes and the ears. So again, the invigilator noticed a case of neglect, and the student gets help. So let's imagine then that a student decides to make a disclosure to you. It could happen. It could happen to anybody. If they said, I'm going to tell you this, but you can't tell anybody, or you can never promise confidentiality. And you would just explain what the next steps will be, that you have to pass the information on. You'll be telling a member of staff. You then just let them tell you what's happened in their own words. You don't ask leading questions that might kind of imply something that maybe didn't happen. So an example would be saying something like, or who did that to you? Well, maybe nobody did it. Maybe they fell over. So let them tell you. Don't kind of react, or sort of judge them. Just listen. If you can, make notes. If you can't at the time, then make notes at the end and write down exactly what happened in their words. Don't sort of interpret what you think they meant, write it down in your own words. If you're unclear about something, you can ask kind of questions of clarification. Again, that's curiosity. When did that happen? There's a big difference between something happening yesterday and something happening 3 years ago. And then pass that information on to me, the designated safeguarding lead, or David Alderson, or Mr. McLaughlin, one of my deputies. And I think on the next slide we've got a reminder of that process and the safeguarding email address, as you can see at the bottom of this slide. So they are really just some key reminders that recap everything that is said in both of these sessions. If you do have any questions, I'll be around in school when you're invigilating. I hope it all goes really well, and in a sort of a good way. I hope I don't hear from you, but certainly do say hello when you're in the staff room having a cup of tea. And good luck with the quiz.